Imagine you're in an empty hotel with your family. You're isolated, completely cut off from the rest of the world, with minimal contact to others. Then all of a sudden, one day, your husband, he snaps. He goes completely crazy, he starts chasing you, he's trying to kill you. So naturally, your fight or flight instinct kicks in, and you start running for your life. Sound familiar? That's the plot of The Shining, a very famous horror movie that I'm sure many of you have heard of or maybe watched. That fight or flight reaction is a biological response to fear from the body. When in the presence of danger, whether real or in this case just watching a horror movie, adrenaline is released all throughout your body. That adrenaline is what helps us in these dangerous situations, gives us that burst of energy to be able to run fast, and it numbs the pain during those intense life or death situations. While this feeling helps us in these situations, it can also trick our brains into acting as if the danger were real, even when we know it's not. As soon as this rush of adrenaline hits, the movies feel much more intense and real. Horror movies capitalize on this by using a number of different strategies to scare the audience. One such strategy is jump scares. So jump scares, they involve a sudden loud noise or a sudden occurrence of a scary face, like you can see here. And a pattern that you'll see with many of these jump scares is that they're often cheesy, they're overused, and you can predict what's going to happen. For example, maybe the killer pops out of the closet with a knife and he starts chasing the main character, or the main character closes the door and the killer just happens to be right behind the door. There's also a lot of music that builds up to these. So the music kind of lets your body know that something's about to happen. You can prepare yourself, and it just takes away from the scare and it makes it less fun. But an example of a movie that does jump scares the right way is Smile. This is actually a jump scare from Smile. So Smile relies heavily on jump scares. I would say that jump scares are the main form of scare in Smile. But they do so in a way that definitely is not predictable. There's no pattern that you can follow. So jump scares in Smile don't have music building up to them, so there's no way to really know that the jump scare is about to happen. And additionally, there's a lot of everyday objects and occurrences that are used as the actual jump scare in Smile. So for example, the phone ringing, it's just like a telephone ringing. It's used like 3 times in Smile to jump scare the audience. It's often used to break the silence, and it's very effective. I remember watching this movie in theaters when it was coming out a couple years ago, and I usually don't jump at jump scares, so I didn't really expect much coming in. But I found myself literally jumping at like every jump scare because there was really no pattern to predict what was going to happen. So there's adrenaline, and then there's another type of hormone, which is dopamine. So dopamine, it makes your body feel pleasure, reward, and motivation, and it's often referred to as a reward system that your body has to make you feel good for certain things, such as the smell of freshly baked cookies, or maybe you win a game or a bet against your friend. Dopamine's released. But your body also rewards you for surviving a horror movie, and that's why after a scary scene, or even just after the movie in general, you kind of like feel good, like, oh, I felt good watching that movie. It turns out our brains walk a tightrope between fear and fun. So we watch horror movies because we like to be scared, but the only reason that we like to be scared is because we know that we're in a completely safe environment, there's no actual danger to us, and it's all controlled, so we can just enjoy this as if it was real, but we know it's not. So we know why we like horror movies, but what makes a good horror movie? It turns out it's not just about jump scares. What a good horror movie does is they combine all the elements, such as jump scares, sound, fear of the unknown, cinematography, and more, to create a full psychologically thrilling experience. Now, one element that I want to focus on especially is sound. So sound is something you'll find in practically all horror movies. It's very important, and it's used in 2 main ways. There's music and there's sound effects. So music is generally used to build tension in scenes leading up to a big event, or it's also used to make scenes feel much more intense, such as like an action scene or a chase scene. While sound effects, on the other hand, their primary use is jump scares, like I talked about before. Like the telephone ringing, it's used to break the silence a lot, and breaking the silence is a very effective way to scare the audience. But sound in horror movies isn't just about the loud bangs and the music building up to a scream. Sometimes it's the subtle, unnerving use of sound that makes you so uncomfortable that's the best. And one of the best examples of this kind of sound is in The Shining, which I talked about earlier. Now, in The Shining, sound isn't just used to build tension in scenes, it's not just used to catch you off guard and scare you. It's used to trap you alongside the character's mind and feel like you're going insane. Whether it's the long echoing hallways, or the typewriter clacking, or maybe it's the unsettling music that plays in the background, it all makes you feel like you're going crazy right alongside Jack, the antagonist. So I'll play a quick scene, and then I'll explain. Here we go. So, in that scene, we can see that the mother of the main character right here, Wendy, she discovers her husband Jack's writing. The whole time they've been in this hotel, Wendy was just under the impression that he was writing a novel, as he told her he was doing, but she never checked in on his work because he didn't want her to. But now she sees this, he's been writing the same sentence over and over, and we hear the repetition of the sound of her like flipping the pages, which just really emphasizes how he's been sitting here like days on days and hours on hours, just writing the same exact sentence over and over again. And in the background, we hear this creepy orchestral soundtrack, which, while most movies would use it to build tension, this soundtrack makes you feel like you're going crazy with Jack, and also reflects Wendy's growing horror as she sees her husband is just going insane. Yeah, this scene is really one of the best examples of how horror movies don't just scare us with what we see, they scare us with what we hear. And that's what great horror movies do. They use all the elements, such as like psychology and camera lighting and sound, to make a full psychologically thrilling experience for the audience. One more element of horror movies I want to talk about is tension. So tension is what keeps us emotionally invested in the horror movie. It's the reason we watch them, and we feel so invested in the plot and what's going to happen. It's the dread, the suspense, and the feeling that something's just around the corner. So good horror movies build tension throughout the movie, and they aim to not break that tension fully ever. And a great example of this is Heretic. So Heretic is my favorite horror movie that I've seen, and for good reason. Heretic follows two young Mormon missionaries who go to this man, Mr. Reed. They go to his house, he invites them in, and he shows nothing but hospitality. But the whole time, something just feels very off, and it's so uncomfortable. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm just like on the edge of my seat. I'm waiting for Mr. Reed to like make a move or to attack these girls or something. But the whole time, for like half the movie, he just doesn't do anything. And I think that's what really got me. I mean, the longer he stayed polite and calm towards the girls, the more uncomfortable and disturbed I felt watching this movie. And this movie really only uses one or maybe two jump scares in it, but in this case the fear comes from the anticipation and the slow unraveling of clues in a situation that you know as a viewer is dangerous, but these girls just keep walking deeper and deeper into it. And something that this movie does great is that the tension isn't released with one single moment. Instead, it's slightly released, and then it's built back up to where it was, and then they keep following that pattern to keep the audience engaged. This movie is really a masterclass on how restraint can be used to scare the audience more than a dozen jump scares ever could. And many movies rely on jump scares, but I think that this movie is much more scary because it's also more realistic in the sense that this could happen, and I think that makes it more scary. So, why do we love horror movies? Well, it turns out it's not just about fear, it's about feeling. Now, horror movies tap into some of our deepest instincts as humans: fear, curiosity, and survival. And horror movies don't just frighten us by scaring us with jump scares. They hold a mirror to what we're afraid of, our deepest fears and anxieties, and they dare us to sit down. Another thing that horror movies do is they teach us that being uncomfortable isn't always a bad thing. I mean, you watch these horror movies to be scared and to face your fears, but you're uncomfortable the whole time, but it's good to face your fears. And what we do is we don't just watch horror movies to scream, we watch them to feel something real, that raw fear emotion, and they also remind ourselves that we can always make it through whatever's going on. In the end, horror movies help us better understand what fear means and what it means to face it.